Hi, so I recently got into a bit of a tiff with my sister-in-law, and nobody from the family is speaking to her anymore because of what happened. So, for context, my sister-in-law, whom I will refer to as Amelia, 26 female, has never liked me. I, 28 female, have been with her brother Andy, 28 male, for 4 years now, and she's always hated my guts because she thinks that I'm the one that ruined her best friend's chances of ending up with her brother. She and her best friend Emma, 26 female, have been inseparable since middle school, and I personally think it's probably because nobody else could tolerate them, so they just stuck to each other. I know for a fact that Emma has always had a huge crush on Andy, and they even dated for a couple of years when he was in college. They mostly had an on and off relationship, which he ended a couple of months before he was supposed to graduate because he wanted to focus on his future. Andy has told me several times that he had always made it very clear to Emma that they were just not compatible, and on Amelia's insistence, he had tried to give their relationship a chance, but it hadn't worked out. They were just very different people. But for some reason, even after it had been made clear to her that they were not compatible, and he was not interested anymore, she continued to wait for him and flirt with him and stuff. After Andy graduated from college, he started living independently and did not move back home again. So we started to see less of both Amelia and Emma. After he had ended his relationship with Emma, he did not date anybody for a couple of years because he wanted to focus on his work. But she took that as a sign that he was still interested in her and continued to try and talk to him, even though he would only make small talk and ignore her if she tried to talk about their relationship. A couple of years after his graduation, when he had been working for a couple of years, he finally started dating again, and that broke Emma's heart, and Amelia gave him a really hard time for it because, in her opinion, there was nobody more perfect for her brother than her best friend. It didn't matter what Andy wanted, she just kept forcing her opinions onto him and even fought with him over this several times. And then finally he met me through a couple of friends, and we started going out together. A couple of months after we met, he introduced me to his family, and ever since that happened, Amelia had pretty much decided that she was just never going to like me. She didn't even care what kind of person I was, or if I was actually a good match for her brother or not. She just knew that I was not Emma, and that was enough for her to dislike me. The first time we met, her behavior around me was very odd, and when I asked Andy about it, he explained everything to me. So after that, I did not expect her to be nice to me, and neither did I try to be friends with her. I have also met Emma several times over the course of our relationship because, just like me, she's also considered a part of the family since she has been Amelia's best friend for so many years. Both of them, when they are together, are extremely catty, and Emma even makes it a point to shoot us dirty looks whenever she sees me with Andy. But it hardly mattered to me because I knew that he was happy with me, and that's all I cared about. So for the past 4 years we have only been ignoring the two of them, and recently, even when we got engaged, Amelia was the only person who did not congratulate us. But we still invited her to the wedding because we did not want to start a family feud. Also, because she is the darling daughter of the family and has always been treated like a princess, it was natural for her to be spoiled and entitled and act all bratty like that. And we mostly just ignored her behavior since it's not like it has ever affected us on a personal level. Besides, my in-laws had literally requested me on more than one occasion to overlook everything, her behavior towards me and her friendship with Emma, and still invite her to the wedding because they would really hate for this to become a big deal, and they told me that she was just being immature. So for their sake, we decided to invite her since, unlike their daughter, they had always been nice to me. And Andy and I did not really see the harm in at least inviting her to appease his parents because we were pretty sure that, given the circumstances, she would not accept our invitation since she would probably want to stand with Emma. But, to our surprise, she decided to accept and even reached out to us and thanked us for inviting her, saying that she was finally getting around to accepting me in the family because at this point, she couldn't really help Emma's heartbreak, and she needed to think about her family as well. Of course, her response to being invited wasn't exactly ideal since she had mentioned Emma quite a lot of times, but it was still a start, so Andy and I were quite pleased about how the situation had turned out. My in-laws were also quite happy that things were working out with their kids now, but our happiness was short-lived because on the day of the wedding, she did something totally unforgivable. So, about an hour before the ceremony was supposed to start, I was getting my makeup touched up and I was already in my wedding dress. My bridesmaids, my mother-in-law, my mom, and Amelia were all sitting around in my room. Basically, all my female friends and family were in one place. At some point, Amelia offered me an iced coffee, and I agreed without really thinking about it. She came towards me with the cup, And then, while handing it to me, she suddenly flipped her wrist, and all of a sudden, the entire front of my dress had coffee and ice on it. The lower part of my dress had been spared for the most part, and only had a couple of droplets here and there, but it was my bodice that had taken most of the damage. Everybody was obviously horrified, and as soon as it had happened, I got to my feet and started trying to get it all out of me, but even I knew that it was pointless. Amelia started apologizing to me profusely, but I could see the smirk on her face, no matter how much she tried to hide it. I knew that her apologies were just for show, and before I knew it, I was screaming at her because I had really lost my temper. I was obviously very upset, and I started crying after some time, but thankfully, everybody else came to my rescue, got the dress off of me, and since we still had an hour to go before the ceremony, they decided to take it to the laundry room and try to do some damage control. I just kept sobbing in my room, even while they were trying to get the dress off of me, and I just kept hoping that the stains would not be noticeable during the ceremony and that the hotel staff would be able to help me out. Here, only my mother-in-law, my mom, and Amelia had stayed back in the room, and she kept apologizing, but I could hear it in her voice that she didn't really mean it and that she was actually enjoying the show. I had asked her to leave several times while screaming at her in the aftermath of the incident, but she refused to go away and sat in my room, even after everything that she had done. The kind of audacity that she had to continue to sit in my room and watch me cry after what she had done was making me even more upset, and I was not even able to verbalize it because I was sobbing so hard, but thankfully, at that point my mother-in-law spoke up for me. And I guess that's when Amelia finally figured out that she was in trouble because, at that point, even her own mother was not with her, and having the status of the darling daughter was not going to save her from the consequences of her actions. After my bridesmaids had left the room with the dress and my mom had been sitting by my side to try and comfort me, my mother-in-law finally spoke up and asked her daughter if she had flipped her wrist to spill the coffee on me on purpose. She sounded very serious, and Amelia tried to deny it, but I immediately called out her bluff, and I told her that I had been sitting quite still and I had seen her flip her wrist on purpose. She then started to argue with me, but my mother-in-law told her to keep her mouth shut and said that, given the situation, she thought that it would be for the best if Amelia left because it was clear that she was not happy about the wedding, and so far my mother-in-law had tried to keep things peaceful. But it was evident that Amelia was not going to allow that to happen. She told her that she had specifically requested me to invite her to the wedding in spite of her behavior because she thought that she could act like an adult for once and be happy for her brother. But she had been a fool to expect that from somebody as spoiled, entitled, and bratty as Amelia, and she didn't even have anybody else to blame for how she had turned out because they had made the mistake of always trying to be gentle with her instead of just being brutally honest with her. However, after what had just happened, my mother and in-law could no longer take her daughter's side in good conscience and asked Amelia to get out of the room and told her not to show up at the wedding, or she would have security escort her out. I was very upset, but even I was so shocked by the way my mother-in-law was speaking to Amelia that I had literally stopped crying to watch what was going on since I don't think Amelia had ever been spoken to like this. Of course, it took her by shock as well, but she recovered relatively quickly and immediately started arguing with her mother. She tried to make it sound like I was playing the victim and the coffee thing had been an accident, but everyone in the room, even my makeup artist, could attest to the fact that she had spilled it on me on purpose. Amelia started trying to blame me, but my mother-in-law made it very clear that she had been invited in the first place as a favor to my in-laws because they had put in a request for her so that there was no family drama. And now she had changed her mind, and she wanted Amelia to leave because had it not been for my in-laws, she probably wouldn't have been invited in the first place. After some bickering, Amelia finally got up really angrily and left the room, and my mother-in-law started apologizing to me for everything that happened so far, and told me that it had been her mistake that she had ever even bothered to try and convince me to invite Amelia, especially knowing that she was a total brat and would go to any extremes to make sure that she got her way. I didn't say much in response. I was just glad that Amelia had pretty much just exposed herself, and the only people that had been on her side all along, her parents, were also turning against her now because of her disgusting behavior. After that, all we could do was just wait and watch, and I just kept my fingers crossed that by the time the dress was returned to me, it was in perfect condition. I even spoke to Andy on the phone since we were not supposed to see each other, and told him everything that had happened. And he told me that he would make sure that Amelia was not going to be present at the ceremony or at the other events. He also told me that he would get all the guests to wait for me to show up, and that I did not need to worry about the time. I could take as long as I needed to because he knew that the dress being perfect was really important to me, and he lived up to his word too. The ceremony began about 45 minutes late since I had to get my makeup retouched again because I had been crying so hard, but by the time I showed up, my dress had been cleaned and steamed. Thanks to my bridesmaids and the staff at the hotel, who had pretty much treated this as a laundry emergency and had treated the dress as quickly and carefully as they could. And there was no trace of any coffee on it when I finally received it back. It all went without a hitch after that, and thankfully, Amelia was nowhere to be seen. If I'm being honest, I pretty much forgot that she had been there in the first place by the time we started dancing. And by the end of the evening, I was so overjoyed to be married to Andy that nothing else mattered to me. After dinner, my in-laws came up to me and asked Andy once again, and this time even my father-in-law told me that he was really sorry about whatever Amelia had done, and if he had any idea that this was going to happen. He never would have made me feel like I need to invite her in the first place. They also told me that they had made up their minds that they were going to cut her off until she apologized to both of us, and they have stayed true to their words and haven't been speaking to Amelia ever since the wedding, which was last week. But for some reason, Amelia has decided to make this my problem and has been getting on my very last nerve, trying to talk to me about all this and get me to sort it out for her. Most of her messages have been along the same lines, that I'm trying to replace her in the family, but I'll never be able to do that because I'm just not as good as her. And apparently she knows for a fact that I'm trying to brainwash her family against her. I've already done it to Andy, and now I'm trying to do it to her parents, but I won't be able to succeed because she knows that her family will come back to her. And she has even confessed that the coffee incident had not been an accident, and she had done it on purpose. She even said that she only regrets that she hadn't been able to get more of it on my dress and completely ruined it, so I wouldn't even have been able to get married. For the record, I have blocked her social media account and her phone number, so she has been using fake profiles and burner phones to text me and get on my nerves. Initially, I was just ignoring it because I really did not think that this was important enough to be discussed with anyone apart from Andy, and he had the same advice for me, that I should just ignore her because getting a reaction out of me is what she wants, and I don't have to play into her hands. However, 2 days back, I don't know what got into me. I decided to unblock her after she tried to text me from a fake profile once again. And I called her up so I could speak to her and put an end to this nonsense once and for all. She declined my call the first a couple of times, but then she finally picked up, and I put her on blast. I cussed her out, told her that she was a loser just like Emma, and that's why they were perfect for each other. And maybe they should just get married to each other instead of trying to ruin other people's weddings. I also told her that I was not trying to take her place in the family at all because she was not even worth replacing, and she had things the other way around. It was actually that I was just not terrible enough to be replaced for somebody like her. I told her that everybody would probably be better off with her out of their lives, especially her brother and her parents, since she had been nothing but a burden and an embarrassment to them all along. I told her to stop bothering me, and then I finally hung up. And since then, I haven't received any messages. But Emma has reached out to me and told me that apparently after that phone call, Amelia had a total breakdown and has gone MIA since then. So, ATA for causing my sister-in-law to go missing in action after she tried to ruin my wedding? Update 1. So, by Amelia going MIA, I meant that she hasn't been responding to anybody's calls or texts ever since I put her on blast on the phone the other day. She and Emma have been staying together ever since the wedding. Earlier, she had been staying with her parents, but after the wedding, she got kicked out of the house and moved in with Emma instead. From what I know, after that phone call, she locked herself in her room, cried for several hours, and refused to let him speak to her or even enter the room. The next morning, when Emma woke up, she found that Amelia was gone and had even left most of her stuff behind. She had tried calling her several times, but hadn't received any response, and had even had their other friends tried to call or text her. But she had been ignoring everyone. Emma thinks that the only way she will respond to anybody is if her parents or Andy reaches out to her, but that's not going to happen. Don't get me wrong, Andy and his parents are not being heartless right now, they're just being realistic, because we know for a fact that she is alive and unharmed. And that is a huge part of the reason why we don't want to reach out to her to give her any importance, because we know that this is just a stunt that she's pulling off for attention. So, we feel bad for being mean to her. How do we know that for a fact? It's because as soon as her parents had heard that she had stopped responding to her friends and stuff, they decided to get in touch with a couple of their family members to find out where she was. Apparently, this is not even the first time that she has pulled off a stunt like this, because even back in high school and in college, She would often go missing for a couple of days, but would usually turn up after her parents got sick and started phoning her relatives. She mostly did these things for attention after fights, so that her parents would give in and she would get her way. She would even emotionally manipulate her relatives, whoever's house she was staying at, to stay silent and not tell her parents about it. Amelia would always have a sob story prepared to manipulate her relatives, and they would always fall for it because she was very convincing. Eventually, the same thing would always happen. Her parents would start getting worried and start calling their relatives to find out if she was, and once they found out where she was, those relatives would scold her parents for not treating her well, and she would eventually turn up back at the house and have an emotional reconciliation with her family, following which she would always get whatever she had wanted in the first place and had fought for with her parents. It was extremely manipulated and twisted, but that's just how Amelia functions, so I'm not surprised. In fact, it was my in-laws who had told me not to worry or feel guilty that Amelia had gone Mia and had told me about her past shenanigans. This time, she had turned up at her aunt's place and had manipulated her aunt into believing that her parents had asked her to leave her brother's wedding for no real reason, and had then kicked her out because apparently I had been brainwashing them into turning against her, and she hadn't even done anything. I don't know about her, but trying to ruin somebody's wedding dress on purpose just a couple of hours before the ceremony sounds like a good enough reason to get kicked out of the wedding to me personally. And I don't understand why she's trying to run this narrative that I'm trying to turn her family against her. She's not even that important to me anyway. After speaking to her aunt, her parents discovered that she had been staying with them, and Amelia had told her aunt that she did not want them to find out that she was staying with her because she just needed some time and space away from her family to recover from this. But we knew what she really wanted. She just wanted to scare her family into thinking that she had actually gone missing, so they would reach out to her and she would get her way once again. That's why she had completely skipped the coffee incident while talking to her aunt about what had happened at the wedding and had made it seem like it was she who was the victim here. So naturally, when her parents called her aunt up, she started reprimanding them for treating Amelia badly and making her so upset. But my mother-in-law told her sister the truth immediately and cleared any misconceptions. They also talked about how she had been pulling off the same attention-seeking stunts over and over again ever since she was a teenager, and it was getting old now. Her parents told her aunt that now that she knew the truth, it was up to her what she wanted to do, and of course, she's getting kicked out of her aunt's house as well now. Her aunt herself has told her mother that she's asked her to leave, but hasn't mentioned why. However, Emma doesn't know that and has still been texting me, telling me that I need to fix this situation before it's too late. I'm pretty sure she's trying to scare me into thinking that something terrible has happened to Amelia, and they're both playing the long game, but they have no idea that we know what they are trying to do. It's her own loss that she's so predictable. But whatever. It's just sad that a grown woman feels the need to do things like this for attention. I think it would be way easier and more respectable to just admit that she messed up and let it go. Update 2, hi. So it's been a while since my last update, and I'm currently on my honeymoon right now. It's only the 3rd day of our honeymoon, and I'm already pretty entertained by what is happening back home. As you guys already know, in the last update, I mentioned that Amelia had been staying with her aunt, but after she found out the truth about what had happened at the wedding from my in-laws, she decided to kick Amelia out. But Emma was still trying to manipulate me to believe that this was all my fault and that Amelia was missing. I started to ignore them, but I did not block him because I wanted to see if she had any other lie that she wanted to come up with. And sure enough, after Amelia got kicked out by her aunt and returned to stay with Emma, she still continued to try and manipulate me and into thinking that Amelia was still gone. She kept texting me about how many days it had been since Amelia had left and how heartless we were not even having tried to contact her yet. So Andy and I decided to mess with her, and we asked her if she was so concerned that she should file a missing persons report since it has been quite a few days since Amelia has left. The two of them were so stupid that they hadn't even considered this possibility, and after we sent that message, they did not say anything to us for a couple of days, and we left for our honeymoon. Today we found out that Amelia had finally shown up at her parents' house and was demanding that they apologize to her because otherwise she was not ready to have a relationship with them. She had probably expected that they were going to get intimidated and apologize to her, but my in-laws just told her that they were not interested in even speaking to her until she apologized to me and Andy. They also told her that this entitled attitude of hers was not going to fly with them anymore, and if she wanted to cut them off, she was free to do so, and they were not even going to question it. That's when she started throwing a temper tantrum at their doorstep, and my in-laws did not even entertain it. They called the cops immediately and had her removed from the premises. She went away kicking and screaming, and I have to say, they are being pretty strict with her, and I think this had to happen at some point. We're just thankful that Andy and I are not at home right now, so she can't bother us even if she wants to. Update 3. Hi, so we have returned from our honeymoon, and Andy and I had a great time, so we were not really looking forward to rejoining all the drama that was going on back home. Honestly, we just want to stay away from all of it. We don't even want her apology anymore, but anyway, I guess Amelia couldn't risk her parents staying mad at her for too long, so she decided to apologize to us. She sent us both an email saying that she was really sorry about everything, that she was only trying to be a good friend to Emma because she honestly believed that Andy and Emma were made for each other. I don't know why she believed that. Andy had made it very clear right from the beginning that he did not see a future with her. In fact, the reason that they had an on and off relationship was because they were incompatible, and he kept breaking up with her, but she kept guilt-tripping him into coming back to her. And I really don't think that it was anybody else's problem that Emma was obsessed with him, and if she was actually a good friend, she would have been helping Emma to move on and not ruining her brother's chances at getting with somebody he actually liked. Anyway, that's how she chose to deal with the situation, and in the email she apologized about it. But just because she apologized doesn't mean that I have to forgive her, and Andy agrees with that. So we did not contact her, but we reached out to our in-laws and told them that we had received the apology, but we were still going to hold out on forgiving her. And we needed some time to process everything because of what had happened at the wedding, and even afterward, it was just not okay. My in-laws were very understanding about it, and in fact, they even told us that they were also maintaining their distance from Amelia at the moment, and she was staying with Emma. To be honest, it doesn't really matter if she meant her apology or not because the damage has already been done, and it's going to take a really long time for us to make peace with her. And if she genuinely wants us to forgive her, she has to prove to us that she's really sorry, that she didn't just say things in that email for the sake of saying it because she did not want her parents to be mad at her anymore. But if she doesn't want to have a relationship with us in future, we're fine with that as well. Honestly, we don't really care. We're just happy that we have each other. And that's all that matters to us right now. We just want to enjoy our lives and not worry about the family drama. So, we are staying out of all of this.